sports games are ruined. They're the equivalent of legendary athletes who continued to play long after their primes and became shells of the talent they used to be. Sports games used to be incredible because they focused on developing interesting and engaging modes that allowed people to play them how they wanted to play. But now, sports games are almost exclusively designed around microtransactions, and never has this been more apparent than with the release of NBA 2K20, which is so blatant and sickening with its psychologically manipulative microtransactions due to the casino backdrop it was advertised with, even if it has been removed for now. From FIFA to Madden to 2K, gambling has taken over sports games. And while it may not create addictions in terms of the psychological definition of that word, it still coerces the human mind into unhealthy habits because that's how gambling works. So today, in this episode of Psychology of Gaming, the series where we look at how psychological principles are worked into games and how games can affect us psychologically, we take a look at how the My Team mode in sports games are designed to manipulate and get you spending. Let me be clear straight away, I've never spent any amount of time playing the My Team modes in any of the major sports games because they really just aren't my thing. And if you think that invalidates what I'm about to say, so be it, but I assure you, it doesn't. I also have no footage to show you from NBA 2K20 because I refuse to support that game by buying it, so expect a lot of sports footage from other titles such as MLB The Show, Madden, and of course, earlier versions of 2K. But here's the thing, guys, I don't need to have played the game to know how the microtransactions work, and how the rest of the game's modes don't get nearly as much attention because they aren't money printers. And so, I'm going to be using 2K20 as the focal point for this video because it's the game that opens itself up to criticism the most. With all that being said, I want to go through and point out how a lot of these games, and not just 2K, but other sports games as well, use casino manipulation in order to get people hooked. One criticism that NBA 2K20 has going for it that the other sports games don't is the presentation of it all. A lot of these sports games will avoid presenting its gambling card packs in a way that conjures images of a casino, but 2K was really planning to double down on that. It starts with the neon purple color palette that bathes the My Team mode, especially this triple threat mode. Neon colors are used heavily throughout casinos simply because our eyes are attracted to them, because they pop out significantly against more dulled out and less focused colors. Brighter colors produce more visual sensations for the eyes, and since our brains are always craving information on the environment we're in, things that pop out get noticed quickly. It can draw our attention towards things, and it's why neon lights, and just bright flashing lights in general, are used in casinos. It's an attempt to overstimulate the brain with information and to reinforce habits that we associate those bright flashing lights with. 2K's neon purple is certainly a good example of one of those colors. But it's obviously much more than that, as the casino theme itself was the most pointed at aspect of the My Team trailer and the thing that was criticized the most. Now again, let me acknowledge that the game has released and these casino machines were actually removed due to the backlash. However, it wouldn't be surprising to me to see them added back in at a later time and date after the public eye leaves the game. A lot of what I'm about to say was coming from the standpoint that the casino games would actually be included into the final release. So this next part may seem a bit irrelevant now that they've been removed, but honestly, like I said, I still think it holds true simply because they could easily easily add the casino machines back in. So for a long time, gamers have pointed out how card packs within these games represent a form of gambling, because real-world money can be used to purchase packs with prizes that are randomized and unpredictable. In a world where games are being investigated by politicians for the inclusion of unrestricted gambling, it seems bizarre for 2K to double down on the casino theme by including slot machines, pachinko machines, and roulette wheels to really hammer home that gambling motif. The My Team trailer was heavily punished by gamers for how prominent these machines were featured, and rightfully so. It's pretty disgusting stuff. Seeing these paid YouTubers putting on a show, acting like they won big, is hard to watch. This scene in particular, where Cash Nasty spins his head around following the prize circle, is particularly disturbing. It's straight out of a casino. I mean, come on. It's inexcusable for this level of simulated gambling in a game rated E for everyone. Now, it's important to acknowledge that you can't spend your real dollars to buy more spins on the roulette wheel or more ball drops on the pachinko machine. They're simply there to provide extra rewards for playing the game. However, let's be honest. It's not unreasonable to think a company like 2K, who has proven themselves to be incredibly money hungry in the past, would eventually put in a patch after the review cycle ends to add the casino machines back in and to allow for extra spins to be purchased. This would provide an extra source of income, which we know game publishers seem to love and can't help but to implement as soon as possible, so long as the backlash won't kill them. On top of that, regardless of if you can spend real money or not on the casino machines, the point remains that it still promotes gambling in a game rated E for everyone, including children and young teenagers. The practice itself is still psychologically manipulative because it still uses a variable ratio schedule, which I discussed heavily in this episode of Psychology of Gaming, which you should watch after this video. Essentially, a variable ratio schedule is one type of reinforcement that promises rewards at an unpredictable rate. Think about a slot machine. They use variable ratio schedules to reward people, or should I say, to punish people. Those slot machines are required to give out a big payout at some point. No matter how small the percentage is, eventually they have to pay out. And what that means is because a person knows that a big win will eventually happen, but there's no way to know when, each spin is hyper exaggerated because that very well could be the spin that wins big. The dopamine rush that makes us feel really good comes not only when winning, but also when anticipating what will happen, when we're anticipating a win. And that's a very important distinction to note. Not only do we feel good when we actually win, but also when we anticipate when a win could occur. And it can lead to a change in the brain that for some people can lead to an addiction. Now, not every person is susceptible to becoming a gambling addict. Everyone can be manipulated like this, but most don't reach a point of full-blown addiction. However, for those who do, it can be very crippling to their lifestyle as gambling takes precedence over everything else. So the point here is that with the way 2K originally intended to implement these casino machines, with the fact that you couldn't spend real money on them, the fact still remains that they sow the seeds of altering the brain's perspective on gambling through normalizing the behavior and getting us used to getting unexpected rewards at an infrequent rate. It's gambling. Whether they removed it or not, they intended for us to gamble. Even if we couldn't spend real money on it, it's gambling. It makes the brain think as if we're gambling. It has the same effects. That's the point. But the real bankrupting threat comes from the card opening that is unfortunately not limited to just 2K20, as it's being popularized amongst, I believe, every single sports game, from FIFA to Madden to MLB The Show to 2K and to the NHL. So typically there's different varieties of packs in which the least expensive ones have the least chance of good rewards, and the most expensive ones have the best chance of good rewards. In these modes, players obviously need to collect as many cards as possible, hopefully ones that are of high skill level players so that their team can actually succeed in competitive multiplayer. Building a sensation of competition within players is another way to get them spending. A player can easily feel like the team they spent no money on keeps getting destroyed, and if they just dabble in buying just a few packs, they have a chance to improve and maybe win some games. You don't need a psychology teacher to tell you that people don't like losing, and so buying packs to accelerate your team's skill level becomes hyper-intensified. This is especially true when developers and publishers have tweaked how long it takes to earn currency without spending money by dramatically increasing the time it takes to grind out currency. Other YouTubers like Jim Sterling have talked about this heavily, so it's not a new idea from me, but it's one worth restating. Companies shouldn't get a free public pass for acting so generous as to offer time savers when they were the ones in the first place who made them all but necessary. So say you do go out and buy some packs with real money, say $100 worth. Now these companies have to really put on a show to make sure your card opening experience is as captivating as possible by using a few subtle techniques. These techniques are used as ways to get the brain eagerly anticipating the potential winnings, which, as I mentioned earlier, is equally as habit-forming as winning itself. Most of these games have tweaked it so that card opening animations take a bit of time to allow your anticipation to build. Some games even flash a green, blue, or purple light to signify the rarity of the card you're about to open. Also, a lot of them give you a button prompt in order to open the pack so that you get to decide when exactly the machine goes off. It's just like pulling the handle on a slot machine. You get a sensation of agency, which can easily be mistaken for agency over the outcome. And when you do win big, these games sure to make a spectacle out of it, just to make sure there's a big show to let you know that you won and to try to build up how good it feels in you so that you'll be more likely to spend more to get that same feeling. And again, all of these are subtle factors that manipulate you into continuing to spend and to continue opening packs. The reality remains, though, that publishers and developers are the ones who get to control the rarity drops, and they can make them as low as they see fit, which is usually done to increase how much money is spent. A player who has already spent $40 trying to get a purple LeBron James card may continue to sink money into it, thinking that the next pack will certainly be the one holding the superstar that they want. This is called the sunken cost fallacy, the belief that continuing to engage in a behavior is necessary to justify the amount of time, money, and resources that have already been spent. The Lakers fan who already spent $40 trying to get LeBron may continue to spend money, believing that the only way to justify what they've already spent is to continue spending until the LeBron card is earned. But since the game doesn't offer a specific guarantee on what each pack will contain, the player may soon find themselves way over their head in spending. Again, the hope for the money-grubbing suits is that you feel a sense of control when secretly they're pulling the strings from behind the scenes. It's predatory, and it's something that needs to be addressed immediately because it's been going on for far too long. That's right, even though 2K20 is about as blatant as you can get, the fact remains that a lot of this isn't new. Most of it has happened before. Some of the gambling machines were first introduced in earlier editions of 2K, and of course, the My Team mode and card packs aren't anything new. One way to normalize things in a person's life is to introduce it gradually and in small increments. It's basically how microtransactions have become so prominent in AAA games in this generation, by making their inclusion only cosmetic first and then slowly pushing more and more into a pay-to-win model where purchasing power determines your actual power in-game. It's yet another way of manipulating consumers into accepting and spending. I want to end by talking about gambling addiction itself. I alluded to it earlier in the video, but it's important to note that a majority of people are not susceptible to full-blown gambling addiction as it's outlined in the DSM-5, the medical book used to outline mental illnesses. The fact remains, though, that these people do exist, and with video games booming from a cultural perspective, the two are sure to mix. Big companies don't really care about these people, instead only worrying about the almighty dollar, and it really is vile. These are the people that may end up spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on Madden card packs or whatever other sports game has released recently. It can financially cripple them, and really it's out of their control. For the rest of us, we too can still be affected, as these sports games may still find a way to weasel a few bucks out of us, if not more. Even if we are able to resist the impulse to buy them, a shift in mindset takes place that normalizes gambling in video games. It's something that publishers will look to capitalize further on in other game genres if something isn't done about it now. That's why it's so important to reach out to the ESRB and your politicians to let them know this kind of predatory behavior is being implemented all across what has become a huge medium all over the world. Gambling doesn't belong in video games, and if it's gonna be there, it needs to be rated appropriately, and something needs to be done about this. So let's get out there and do something. If you or someone you know is affected by gambling addiction, I've left a link in the description below to the Gambling Addiction Hotline hosted by the National Council for Problem Gambling. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the rest of the Psychology of Gaming playlist. If you want more on this topic, check out episode 20 of Psychology of Gaming, all about Fortnite and variable ratio schedules. Otherwise, check out a game I've covered that you enjoy. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing for more. Follow me on Twitter at NopNapNarp. And as always, have a nice day and take care.